2024. So if the committee and the audience knows this meeting is being recorded, let's do a quick roll call. School committee, June.
Here.
Lisa Bloom.
Here.
Lisa Mark.
Here.
Randy.
Here.
Tom. Here. I am here, and then David and Jessica are not here. Our next scheduled meeting at the North Middlesex Regional School Committee will be held at 6 p.m. on Thursday, March 14th. The first order of business is a public hearing on the FY 24-25 school choice. This is a public hearing on school choice for the year 2024-2025, according to Chapter 76, Section 12 of the Massachusetts General Laws. All interested persons shall be given the opportunity to be heard. Superintendent, we have an initial discussion on whether or not school choice has a recommendation.
Yes, I have a recommendation that we opt out of school choice so we have more clarity on what we're about.
Any questions or discussion?
Fred, do we make a motion to open the,
Yes.
to open the school choice?
Oh, to open the hearing?
I know we've done that in the
Okay.
past.
Yes. I'll take a motion to open the hearing.
So.
Yes, the chairman.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of opening the public hearing for school choice, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, so now the hearing is open. Any discussion from the committee? Thank you.
Just a question.
Sure.
What would that mean for, like, if we've had students in school choicing for several years, would they not be permitted to?
So once students school choice in, they're allowed to stay in the district.
Okay.
Moving forward. It would just be new students.
I just had more of a comment for the audience and anybody who doesn't understand about school choice. What school choice is to opt in to allow students from other districts within Massachusetts to come into our schools. We get about $5,000 per student that comes, which does not cover the cost of what we pay per student. And so if we have room in our classrooms, we usually will open up a couple of slots if we have that. If not, we can decide on which grades and which schools we have slots open. By opting out right now, because the budget, we don't know what's going on with the FY25 budget, opting out just makes students that we can afford to have.
And just to add to that too, once you opt in, you cannot reverse that decision. But you can change, if you opt out, you can change that decision moving forward. So if we were to opt into school choice tonight, and we have budget problems down the road, once we advertise the slots that we have open, we are bound to take those students in, regardless of our budget situation.
And that is an opt-in, opt-out per year, not
Yes.
for anything more than this school year.
Anybody else from the committee? Anybody in the room from the public that wants to speak about school choice? Anybody online that wants to speak about school choice? Can you just raise your hand? All right.
We have some. Yeah, it's Quentin from Pethel. I think he's on the
Does he want to?
Well, his hand has been raised, so I'm just assuming you can ask him, but I was thinking that he's raising his hand so that we know he's here from the FinCom.
I think I'm here. Quentin, I think you're on here if you wanted to speak about.
Actually, can you guys hear me now? Are you all able to hear me now?
He's allowed to talk.
He's probably their speaker.
So, Mama's against. I don't know if he's.
All right, are you all able to hear me now?
They can hear him speaking on the Zoom, but even though we can't hear him speaking here, there's no pressure.
Hi, everyone, can you hear me?
Yes. I could hear you. Now we can't hear you.
You can hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
I don't think you can hear us.
Oh. Quentin, can you hear us? Yes, you can hear us. I heard you ask the question and then we couldn't hear you.
I'm not sure. Are you able to hear me now? I've connected a couple of times to my microphone here.
Yep, we can hear you fine.
You have a question?
Okay. All right, any other discussion on school choice? Okay. Then I will take a motion to close the hearing, and then we will have the motion on.
So moved. Second.
All right, Lisa.
Do we need to vote on the opting out?
Yes, that's after the hearing. Closes.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll so now I'll take the motion on if we want to.
So,
Second.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I can't hear you.
So the hearing was closed, that was Lisa and June. And now the motion, is to, move that the school committee opt out of participation in the school choice program and not enroll school choice students for 2024-25 school year due to budget restraints, space availability. June and Wayne, Lisa, Randy.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That was the hard one, now the easy one. We'll open take the motion to open the public hearing for the FY 24-25.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions. All right, so this is a public hearing on the North Middlesex Regional School District School Committee's FY 24-25 proposed budget. The superintendent is going to present an overview of the proposed fiscal year budget for the school district. Public will have the opportunity to address the school committee relative to the proposed budget. Should also, I don't know if the town boards posted this as a joint meeting, we can call those meetings to order if we need to. But I would like to kind of do a roll call on who is here from the towns. So I don't know, does anybody need to call their meetings to order? We do not meeting or? No, we won't be taking action tonight. Okay. Perfect. So, Andrew, we'll start with you. Just want to introduce yourself, go down the line.
Pembroke Town Administrator Andrew McLean.
Mark Matthews, Pembroke Select Board Chair.
John Laddick, Chairman, Pembroke Finance Committee. Chuck Walkovich, Member, Pembroke Select Board.
Gerald Mazekas, Townsend FinCom. Teresa Morse, Bolton, Townsend.
Don Hayes, Chairman, Finance Committee, Townsend.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you taking the time.
There are also, board participants online, I believe as well.
All right. Thank you. If anybody online is representing their towns, if you could raise your hand, we'll promote you. So you can be part of the discussion. And we'll do introductions as well. I have Chaz, I have Jessica, and I have a named person. If you want to just introduce yourselves and who you're representing, that would be great.
Hi, this is David Nato, Select Board Chair of Ashby.
And Jessica Callan, I'm on the Select Board in Ashby.
And we have Quentin and Chaz as well. I don't know if they're Quentin's there, Chaz, I don't know if we can.
Chaz, since there's two of us here, Chaz, should we call the meeting to order, our meeting? Chaz?
You don't have to raise it down. But we'll move on. Well, Superintendent, I'll turn it over to you and the same. If you wanna-
Yes. So we will just go through the slides and kind of give an overview of FY '25. Again, this year, the goal is, and always has been, is to be as transparent as possible to meet the needs of the students and staff of North Middlesex Regional School District, and to put forth a budget, obviously, that makes sense for the entire school community. We began our budget summits in August, and we held them in August, October, November, and December. All of which, again, continue to be beneficial, just because it opened up lines of communication between the school district and member communities. And with the timelines, again, we talked about the summits. We requested budgets from all of our school departments by November 15th. The governor's budget proposal was released with minimum local contributions and the foundation enrollment on January 24th. So just about a little over a week ago. Public hearing is tonight, and the school budget adoption will be next month on March 14th, with the snow date on March 18th. And then we have town meetings, Ashby May 4th, Pepperell March 18th and May 6th, and Townsend May 7th. Potential budget adjustments, just to make everyone aware. Right now, we are in negotiation with D-Bus for a new 3-year bus contract. We've already had one meeting with them, hoping to have another meeting in the near future. We're actually waiting to hear back from them at this point, just to see if any additional adjustments can be made on their end. Active employee health insurance. If you're not aware, I will share with everyone that we lost our Neshoba Minuteman Health Trust. So effective June 30th, we will no longer be a part of the trust. That trust is dissolving. And we have since sought bids from both Blue Cross Blue Shield and Harvard Pilgrim. As of right now, those bids are coming in rather high. They are higher than what we projected, higher than what we had projected if we had remained with the trust, again, which is not an option. But I will say, since we became aware of that, we've been working hard with our state representative, our state senators, representatives from the MTA, lobbyists in the Commonwealth, to see if special legislation can be filed that would allow us access into the GIC. The deadline for applying for the GIC was January 1st, and it simply was not possible when we learned that the trust was dissolving on December 15th to make that happen for January 1st. So it does require special legislation because that deadline has passed. I did hear from Senator Cronin moments before tonight's meeting began, and he is hoping to have a response by the middle of next week as to whether or not they will accept us into that. North Middlesex is attempting access or admittance into the GIC, as is Acton Boxborough. If they do accept us for North Middlesex, it would save us approximately $1 million on what we are asking for in FY '25. So it would be a substantial savings. It would basically reduce the need for an override that's on paper tonight by approximately 1/3. Again, it could be less than $1 million, it could be $750,000, it could also be more than $1 million. But either way, it's a substantial savings, and it is something that we'll be able to forecast more accurately moving forward, because the GIC generally increases at a rate of 4 to 6% annually. Certainly hoping that that is a possibility. I know our teachers are pushing for it, MTA is pushing for it as well, and it would be something that would benefit not only the staff in the school district, but the entire communities, all 3 communities as well, from an override and taxing perspective. Retiree health insurance, the GIC assessment should be available mid-month. Collective bargaining, all unit contracts, teachers, paraprofessionals, nurses, custodians, and secretaries expire on June 30th. Coming up, we have just also found out this evening that the teachers union has agreed, and they have ratified the contract. So we got great news from them. So we'll be moving forward with the new contract for teachers, and we are currently working with paraprofessionals and nurses, and then we'll move on to custodians and secretaries after that. New positions. It has been very, very difficult to find quality staff. There's a teaching shortage, an educator shortage in general across the United States. So finding qualified staff has become extremely difficult, oftentimes forcing us to hire outside the desired salary range based on licensure. As an example, I would say, 10 years ago, if there was, say, a social studies position open, you would literally receive a stack of 300 to 400 applications. Now we're receiving a stack for a position like social studies. I would add guidance counselors, physical education to that as well. Positions that used to garner a lot of applicants to a pool of about 8 to 10 licensed candidates. So we are literally competing with our neighbors for the same people at this point. So hopefully that will change. There has been a significant number of new positions added since FY23. Those positions are a result of many things. I would say part of it is COVID, post-COVID, because of the needs that students have had coming out of that. But in addition to that, we've had to hire a significant number of additional special education teachers, a significant number of additional special education paraprofessionals, service providers, all of which are mandated by state and federal law to make sure that we are in compliance with individualized education plans. In addition to that, we've had to maintain compliance with our class size policy, and we've also had to hire additional English language learners, also mandated by the state of Massachusetts. So the 26 positions that we have hired since FY23 is 26 point.
That's the increase.
That's the increase moving into. But okay, thank you. There will be a slide on that moving forward, but that is a result of positions that we honestly do not have, an option of not filling. The positions that must be filled. Enrollment numbers are fluid. We have a projected pay enrollment for next year. Homeschool returns, we are seeing more students return from homeschool. That number is getting back to the pre-COVID numbers. But then we also have to account for students that move in between now and the end of the summer and DCF placements. So Department of Children and Families do place students in our district, and we don't always know what those numbers are going to look like until the end of the summer. Other potential adjustments is special education tuition. There has been a significant number in the increase of referrals for students for special education, particularly at the lower grade levels. Again, this is something that is happening across the state. It is not just the North Middlesex challenge. Property and workers' compensation insurances have increased, and again, we don't have those numbers as of yet. Elementary enrollment levels are still fluid, and the legislature is making revenue changes and increasing transportation reimbursement, Chapter 70, and other funding. So we still don't have all of our numbers at this point, so we still have to prepare for numbers potentially not being where we would expect them. An example would be last year we received close to 90% reimbursement for school bus transportation. This year we're being told to plan for less than 75%. So that is a substantial increase for the school district. I think I did cover most of this already. We did have some ESSER grant funding. Again, ESSER was great while it was here. It helped us get through the pandemic. but a lot of the residual effects of the pandemic are still there. Again, we have students that have fallen behind. We have students with social emotional issues, and we have students, again, that are requesting, or families that are requesting that their children be tested for special education services, and that obviously has an impact on our budget. When you look at our per pupil costs, as committee member Rush mentioned, when we take a student in for school choice, it's $5,000. So that $5,000 does not cover the per pupil cost for North Middlesex. Per pupil cost for North Middlesex is $18,599 per student. That is slightly over $1,500 below the state average. So that's an example of a regional school district that truly is not being funded as it should be. The regional funding formula still tends to be something that is somewhat antiquated. And as I mentioned earlier, while our state reps and state senators are working on getting us into the GIC, they're also working on getting the regional funding formula addressed at the state level. And we're being told it's likely that will be addressed, but not for 3 to 5 years. So it's hopefully coming, but it's not something that we're going to realize for a few more years. Yes. So the FY 25 budget represents a 6.79% increase over FY 24, bringing our budget to $67,717,155 with a change of 26.6 FTE over FY 24.
Sure. So the increase is made up of a variety of staff and supplies, and the slide just breaks down the 6.79% increase and where that falls. And as you can see, under salary, contractual obligations, benefits is the vast majority of it. On the right side, there was a few reductions. There wasn't actually a reduction in special ed tuition, but we did get some additional circuit breaker money, which we're going to use pay some of those tuitions over under the circuit breaker fund. So it ended up being a slight reduction. The other numbers are relatively small increases on the left. I won't go into each individual position, but this is a breakdown of where the 26.6 staff members are. There's really 3 sections here, the ESSER positions that are coming back onto the budget. The additions that happened in FY 24 that we're seeing additional needs for, and then the 25 requests that are on the right-hand side. And these are departmental requests for FY 25. You want to go into any more detail on that one?
No, I don't think so. I would just point out again that the majority of these are changes that the district doesn't have options on, that the district must fill in order to remain in compliance. And I did just want to add too, if you look at the FY 25 requests, those are requests at this point. So I did misspeak. I was counting those positions in the 26.6 positions. So when you subtract those out, it's actually, yes, it's actually about 20 positions in that neighborhood.
Just for clarification, are those positions in the budgeted dollars? 6 that aren't there?
They're in the FY 25 budget right now, the 6.7. Yeah.
So the actual increase budget to budget is 26 individuals.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is just a historical enrollment the past 10 years with 3 towns, Ashby, Pepperell, Townsend, and then the top number is just overall enrollment. I think we've looked at this at a couple other hearings, and in general, we're very level. We're not we're not expecting any large increases or decreases. So the overall budget, the overall foundation enrollment numbers, which are taken from this past October for each of the member towns, the entire district changed by 1 student. So we went from 3,096 students to 3,097. But the breakdown wasn't even, which is one of our angst every year. This particular year, Ashby saw an increase of 8 students, or 0.25% increase. Pepperell saw a decrease of 18 students, or reduction of 0.6, and Townsend saw an increase of 11 students, increase of 0.35%. So where you see that apportionment change is how much of the district in each town is, how much each town is made up of. So Ashby went from 12.86 to 13.11% of the district. Pepperell went down from 48.84% of the district to 48.24%. And Townsend went up slightly, 38.3 to 38.65. And some portions of the formula use these enrollment numbers for calculations. And we'll see that in a later slide. Each year we provide NSDEC a list of the enrollment, and they do a projection for 10 years. So this is FY24 through FY34. So you can see what they're projecting is quite level, a little bit up, a little bit down, but essentially a level population. As we mentioned, we did receive the governor's proposal. The governor's proposal for North Middlesex is an additional $30 per student, which is equal to $92,000 or so. Combining that with what the projected transportation and charter school reimbursement, we're actually looking at a reduction of revenue from the state of $22,991. So essentially no new money. The district revenue are things that we have internally that we use towards the budget, which include excess and deficiency, or E&D. We're planning to use $2,045,000 in E&D, which is what we used last year. The Medicaid reimbursement's gone up, and again, those are reimbursements providing services for students. We've seen an increase in those numbers. School choice funds we use to offset health insurance, and we're using funds that exist now, but we aren't replenishing at the rate we're using for this year. So we're a little bit off there. Investment income's gone way up. So overall for the district controlled revenues, we're projecting $105,000 increase. And that's the two arrows. So the district budget is made up of the state revenue, the district accounts, and assessments. And the assessments are calculated using a number of formulas. The minimum local contribution we talked about earlier, but that essentially looks at income in the community, value of property, and then how the town's ability to pay from those two calculations. And this is part of the governor's proposal, so we don't get these numbers until the governor's proposal comes out, so we can't project those very easily. But that top section, you can see the part of the issue with this year's calculation of assessments is that Ashby's minimum local contribution is going up 8.15%, which is significant. In addition to that, they gained enrollment in the district, as I mentioned earlier, so they both got increases in the minimum local and the enrollment, which is going to make the calculation much more difficult for Ashby. You can see that on the bottom section, the total operating assessment, where Ashby's at 16%, but overall the district's going up 12.53%. So they get hit proportionally because of those two factors. I did want to mention, we are going to put these slides on the website, so if there are questions on them, or if you want to refer to them after, we'll be putting them up on the budget page. Transportation, we have both an increase in our special education transportation and we just finished a 5th year of the regular transportation contract. So we are expecting bigger increases in the transportation assessment. In addition, the state is we're projecting an 80% reimbursement rate right now. That's what the governor's proposal was. It's possible that could change if the House and the Senate increase that number, but hopefully they won't decrease it, but it's not a final number yet. And then we have a reduction. We actually did very well on the ban renewal. We have a bond anticipation note that we renewed just actually closed on the 3rd, I think, February 3rd. And we thought we were going to have worse results, but we actually did fairly well on that. So our debt is going to go down slightly. So when the towns put together their budgets, they usually, oftentimes they combined the transportation and the operating assessment. So that's what I'm showing here. And what I wanted to, the top number is what the budget looks like right now with a 6.79 budget for North Middlesex. It's an average of 12.83% on member assessments. And again, you'll see unfortunately, Ashby taking more of the brunt of that than the others. The bottom is what the budget would look like, or what the assessments would look like if we try to put a budget out where the town's got a 3% average. Now, we can't give everybody a 3% average equal because of the way the formula works. So you can see, like, if we try for a 3% on the bottom, Ashby's at 5.93, Pepperell's at 2.64, and Townsend's at 2.49. So it becomes challenging to get those numbers where they need to be. So in conversations with the towns, it's been made clear, and I think generally in other years, that it's approximately the towns can afford a 3% increase in this assessment. And over that makes it more difficult, and obviously under that's ideal for you guys, but it doesn't always work out. So the delta between the two right now is $3,314,000. I talked a little bit about this with the state aid. Again, this is a Chapter 70 funding, the way the funding works, and I just put this slide in here so people could kind of see the factors that impact it. So why did Ashby get impacted, or why didn't Pepperell get impacted? And again, it's enrollment. There's a foundation budget that's established, which is based on enrollment, based on the wage in the area, and there's an inflation factor applied to that. The local contribution portion of the budget is based on the income levels, property values, and the town's municipal growth. And those are calculations that Department of Local Revenue certifies. So the municipal growth factors, I just put them up there so you can see the difference. They're not too far off each other, but so right now the budget's at 6.79. If we were to compare that to the 3% budget, it would be a 1.56% budget for the school district. And these are what the transportation and operating assessments would be in both cases. And I did this so that we could estimate, and again, this is just a conversation more than just a scenario, I guess is what I'm saying, what it would look like if we did a 6.79 versus a 1.56. And then that's the 3,314,000 we saw earlier.
And just to add to that, if the GIC is something that we are able to be admitted into, that would have upwards of $1 million impact on that. So it would be likely that the override would go from 3.3 down to 2.3.
Can I just add in, most of the people that are here from the towns have seen this and hopefully remember from year to year, if there's anybody new watching. It looks a little strange. We're talking about a 12% increase for the towns, average, or 3%. And the North Middlesex regional budget seems to be about half of that when we're looking here. So to explain that, is we get about 40%, I think it is, from the state of our budget. And as you saw in the earlier slides, the state amount that we're getting from them is going up less than 1%. And so when our budget goes up, let's just say 1% for a nice round number, their number goes up by, 0.5%, then 60% of the budget which the towns pay for is taking up almost twice the amount of the increase because the state's portion is not keeping up, which is why the towns appear to be assessed more than what our overall budget is going up. That's something that usually gets lost in the translation, especially with new people that are looking at the budget.
Yes.
So in looking at it, if we do not get the approval of a Prop 2.5 override, what would the impact to the district look like if we had to reduce by just over $3.3 million. From a staffing perspective, we would be looking at the reduction of 17 teaching staff. Okay, that teaching staff would likely be at the K-8, in the K-8 area, bringing class sizes up to 28 to 31 in that range, based on our projections right now. Administration would be a reduction of 3 administrators. Overall, paraprofessionals, 14 paraprofessionals in the district. And then it would reduce all 5 FTEs that are being requested as part of the FY25 budget, the new positions. That gets us to just over $2 million. In order to come up with the additional 1.2, we would look at health benefit savings of $250,000. We would reduce our stabilization transfer by $150,000. And then we would have to make an additional $830,000 in reductions, looking at potentially an additional 10 FTE, potentially getting some assistance if we are admitted into the GIC, looking at our kindergarten model, looking at our middle school model, looking at the buildings that we have in the district. There really is no easy answers when it comes to getting up to how do you compensate for a $3.3 million reduction. But likely, if it was all staff, we would be looking at class sizes that would be very, very high, well above the state average, and likely the loss of some programming as well.
So we're using, I mentioned earlier, 2,045,000 out of a certified number of 2,674,000. Which is 76% of the E&D for the FY25 budget right now. And again, you'll be able to access these from the website afterwards. We just included, so that the committee and the public's aware of the various capital projects that we've completed. And again, it's a year past, but we've included it just for reference. The various buildings have had some security upgrades, intercoms and clock replacements. We do budget $250,000 each year for capital needs. And in the past, this is FY23's list. We're working on a projection for a final for FY24 and projected for FY25 for capital.
If you look at the projected enrollment, as I talked about, certainly the greatest impact at the elementary level would be at Spalding and Barnum Brook, just with regard to the current class sizes. And obviously Ashby with grade 3 with the 27 and it being one section. So again, if things don't work out with the override, you're basically eliminating a section at every grade level and getting to numbers that are very high. Middle school is less of an issue when it comes to class size. Those numbers are still quite manageable.
These are lots in there.
Yes. And the same thing at the high school. The issue with the high school is the reductions at the high school level would be very difficult because you would end up really impacting what the high school schedule looks like, eliminating potentially some programs, potentially some electives that the students, certainly like to take, but they're areas of interest for them when they're going on and moving on to college. And if those electives are not available, it is possible that students will explore other options at the high school level and look at places such as Bishop Burton, charter schools, Chilton Tech, Monty Tech, so on and so forth, if those courses are not available.
A lot of numbers. I won't go into all the details here, but you can peruse it afterwards. But essentially, this breaks down our budget into categories of administration, instructional support, and the vast majority of the funding is in instructional support and teaching services. Pupil services includes your transportation, your nursing, guidance, then operations and maintenance, insurance, retirement. and other programs, and our debt service, and the out-of-district placement and assessments. We have a transfer of 250, I believe, to other post-employment, and 150 to stabilization. Total budget of 67,717. Those categories are broken out here, so you can see the breakdown. 45% of the budget is instructional support, 18 insurance, debt service of 6%, out of district placements and state assessments, just school choice assessment is in there as well. We're assessed for students that attend other schools. That's 12% of the budget. Small transfer to the other post-employment, administration of 2%, pupil services, 8%, operation and maintenance also 8%.
And just in conclusion, I'm not going to go through the entire slide, but overall, class size is very, very important to us, as is our academic program. When you look at our budget on the whole, if we take those 5 new positions that we're asking for as part of FY '25, we are presenting what is truly a level service budget. I know that comes with expenses, but a lot of those expenses are mandated expenses that we have to have in place in order to continue to provide students and families with a quality education in North Middlesex. So I realize it's a significant increase, but overall, we're looking at transportation increases like we are currently with the average. I mean, everything's above 2.5%. The transportation is significantly higher than 2%. Health insurance is significantly higher than 2%, and CDAs are higher than 2%. So and then on top of that, we have special education students that are placed out of the district, and last year that was a 14% increase statewide. We don't know what those numbers are going to look like next year, but in totality, pretty much everything that we project from one year to the next is far above 2.5%. And
Question. Thank you. Anybody from the committee have any questions, comments, questions? Anybody from the town?
Yeah, Mark Matthews from Capital. Brian, you mentioned at the beginning about the GIC opportunity and the conversation with Senator Klein. It seems, I mean, that's $1 million savings. That's a no-brainer, but is the reason that the state wouldn't do it because they have to take on additional costs?
So it's my understanding that it's not just North Middlesex, there's another district as well that's looking to get in that would save more than double what we would save. Apparently it is a significant amount of work in a short period of time because everyone has to be moved in prior to March 1, I believe is the date. And just to be honest, we are prepared to move. Our HR director, our teachers, all of our CBAs are prepared to move. What we don't want to see happen is that we do have the ability to move to the GIC in January, which would give us some savings. The problem with that is that we'd be asking all of our staff, 500 some odd staff, to open enroll twice. Potentially, birth certificates, marriage certificates, losing primary care positions from one plant to the next, and it would create a significant amount of disruption. And quite honestly, even moving this initial change is going to put our HR staff in a very difficult spot making this happen. So to do it twice is really just a waste of resources on top of that. But ultimately, I guess it is going to cause the GIC a great deal of work. It would be precedent setting because this has not happened before. But again, this is not a situation where North Middlesex would have fell asleep at the wheel. This is a situation where we lost our health insurance and we found out on December 15th. We were very hopeful that the trust would be able to remain a trust for at least a couple of years, not that they were just going to, we were going to lose them on June 30th.
I guess my comment would be that First, I think if you're working with Cronin, we need to talk to Kennedy, we need to talk to
Yes,
Scarsdale.
all of them are
But I
involved.
mean, all of us.
Yes.
Not just.
Yes, absolutely.
That's $1 million. And the other part, as badly as I would feel about having people having to enroll twice in 1 year, you know, we're going to people who can't afford to pay for this. So any opportunities,
Right.
you know, we need to work together. So
Sure.
if it can't be done March 1, I would highly recommend it's done January.
Mhm.
You have the double enrollment, so people can save at least some of them.
Sure, okay.
I guess, Chuck Walker, the hard thing is this will be the second year in a row where we've had to go to our town and give them significantly bad news. And an override was voted down last year and going to be presenting another override this year. And although you're talking about some savings with the potentially moving to GIC, you also have some downside impacts of bus transportation cost, whether that contract is solidified and what increase will be there. Where do you really think that this budget is going to end up at? We have to, and I know that's a difficult question to ask, but it's a difficult budget to prepare, but it's also a difficult budget for us to fund.
Understood.
And it is hard for us to say, okay, North Middlesex has a blank check. I know that that's not the case, but if the state has decreased their funding by 22% or $22,000, they're only reimbursing transportation at 80%, and they're adding mandates. They can't put that on the back of the residents of this district.
I mean, I would like to see us, I would like to say that I'm confident that we can get it down. I'm not, I'll feel a lot more comfortable next week in making that, you know, and being able to give you a better answer to that. I'm feeling better tonight about the GIC than I was earlier today. Certainly, again, after talking to Senator Cronin, we realized that there are certain things that we may need to do to get our budget. I'm hopeful that our bus negotiations will help get that number down a little bit. Again, the health insurance piece, and then really going to look at the staffing piece and seeing where any additional reductions can be made. It really does come from staffing, because as a whole, the budget does not have a significant amount of money in curriculum and instruction. Other than staff. When it comes, I'm talking about materials and things of that nature. So in order for any real reductions to be made out of our budget, it would have to come out of staffing. So that's something, again, that we're always willing to look at. But we are trying to obviously maintain those class sizes at a manageable rate as well. Just because of the impact. And I know that there are some people that are going to come and tour some of our classrooms next week, which I'm excited about. And again, if people are interested and would like to come and see what's happening in the schools, you're always welcome. I'm willing to set that up and make that happen. But I think also that just coming in and seeing what's happening will help at least inform people as to why we're asking for what we're asking for. But, and I do realize it's a lot. I do wish that the state would give us more money than what they're mandating. Because as I said, the majority of those positions that we added, 20 positions or so, we did not have, it wasn't as if, you know, this position would be nice. It was, we have to hire this position to remain in compliance. That's really what it comes down to for most of these positions.
What would be the impact if we went out of compliance?
We would end up with complaints with the, through the problem resolution system at DESE, and also likely the Board of Special Education Appeals, both of those organizations, and then we would be given a legal decision where we would have to comply. Because if we fall out of compliance with students, then we owe those students what's called compensatory services. And that comes usually at an hourly rate outside of the school day.
So if the override doesn't pass, we're in the same position.
We would have to cut other positions. we would have to, essentially, look at reducing core classroom teachers, specials, things of that nature.
Thank you.
And administrative, this, I did have that up there as well. Administrative positions would cut as well, just to clarify. Yes,
Can you go back to the EEFC slide, the 26 positions, please?
This one?
Yes, so ESFCI. So this is where I get most confused, and it was a little more detailed in the document we sent out yesterday, the February 6th document. So going under the presumption that this was all paid for grants, this was from post-COVID grants, right? These were positions that were created due to COVID that we felt that students needed extra, there was going to be an extra need due to COVID, and over the time, these positions were hired based on that grant, correct?
just to clarify, the only positions that were funded through the grant are the ones, the top positions. So the top left, the grant manager, so a half-time grant manager, a 0.25 secretary, a 1.0 Ashby Elementary teacher, a 1.0 Barney Brook teacher, 6 paraprofessionals, and 1 preschool teacher, and 2 behavior technicians. All the other positions were funded, we're funding now through the budget.
Okay, through the budget.
Yes.
So post-COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID, next year, this year, whatever, our enrollment has been flatlined. And I thought when you came to this slide, you said that these were mandated positions. But if we're having flatline enrollment, why do we have 26 new mandated positions?
So the enrollment is pre-K to 12 overall. That doesn't, so it doesn't mean there wouldn't be certain bubbles at certain grade levels. So when that happens, so for instance, currently we have a policy in place. So where it says VBES teacher 1.0, the very first one, in the second group in there, additions on FY24, you see where I am?
Right.
Okay, so the addition of that position meant that classes got to over 25 students.
But
Once they
again,
get to over 25
is not a
students,
state mandate, that's a school
it's
committee.
a combination of school committee policy and state and federal mandate.
That is state mandate, 25?
No, that's school committee policy.
Right.
Okay?
What is the state mandate?
The state doesn't have a mandate.
Okay. So I just want to make it clear that these positions didn't get created because of the state mandate. These are unfunded mandates.
No, so then you get to the next one, the inclusion teacher, that would be considered a state or a federal mandate. The HBMS inclusion teacher, the high school special education teacher, those would be state or federal mandates due to the ability to comply with IEPs. This is a middle school teacher, school committee policy. The district-wide paraprofessionals, the medical therapeutic, ELL specialist staff, all of those positions right there are state and federal mandates. Custodian is not. There was a reduction in the curriculum director and a reduction in the AES media.
And the new positions you're requesting?
So the counselor at Nissitissit, the second one down, may very well be a state mandate. That may be something we have to do because counselors, oftentimes students have in their IEPs, in their 504s, counseling services. Which
And always use the word unfunded mandate, just so that we can get, I said always use the word unfunded mandate, so we can get people to understand.
Another one would be the potential middle school autism program. And that's it. The rest of them would be
would be requests that you're
Yes.
requesting due to.
Yes.
The school policy.
Yes, or request.
What you mentioned earlier, though, the athletic trainer, you said that that's being pushed by MIA.
Yeah, so the MIAA right now, to our knowledge, we're the only school in the entire Mid-Watch, which I believe is 3 divisions over, right, I think 25 to 30 schools in it. We're the only school district that does not have an athletic trainer. We used to have it. And it was reduced, or we did have a full-time position and we ended up reducing it. And it has ended up being as costly, if not potentially more costly, having it done by a part-time person and also having to contract it out because the MIAA requires an athletic trainer at boys football, boys lacrosse. There's a list. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but they do require an athletic trainer on site for home and away games for both teams, for certain sports. So it does get to a point that it becomes cost prohibitive to not have a full-time person because between having a part-time person with benefits and then bringing on someone that's part-time, it ends up being counterproductive. Thanks for bringing that up, Will.
A comment. Last year, if I remember correctly, about the same time, you folks came up and the federal assessment was about $2.2 million. And somebody from the school committee said, we cannot go any lower without drastic consequences. And then about a month later, you folks cut that down by about a half. And I didn't really hear of any drastic consequences. So my expectations are that you folks are going to go back and sort of sharpen up your pencils and really look at this and come back with something. And just in terms of some rough numbers, our assessment is close to, let's say, $2 million. If you can save $1 million on insurance, that means Pepperell's assessment will go down by $500,000. So that takes us to 1.5. And the town can only afford about $500,000. So that takes us to $1 million override. So that's sort of what we're going to have to go back and explain to people, that if we have an override, whatever number that is, a huge chunk of that is really for the schools. So when you come to talk to us, I hope you have a real good story of why you really need that money.
Sure.
Because that's really hard to swallow, to be honest with you. We used a ton of free cash last year, and I don't think we're gonna have that amount of free cash for this year. So I'm not sure how Townsend and Ashby are in terms of their budget, but since we're all in the sort of same geographic area, we're probably all in the same situation. So it's going to be a tough sell. And if we come to the town meeting and we say, no, we're not going to vote, we have a budget, we're going to vote it down, are you folks prepared to go back and really do some serious cuts?
I would say that we have a plan. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not something that again, that we can do without having a significant impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we have to cut that amount and the GIC does not come through.
Right.
Cutting that amount is going to be significant and it is something that will be done.
Following up on the question that the lady asked here before, would it be fair to ask, and the number wouldn't be tonight, but if you only put in those 26 positions, ones that were mandated, and took the rest of them out, what would the savings be fully loaded? Salaries, benefits, and everything?
We don't look at that.
Yeah, but could you do that?
Yes, sure.
Because I think.
So the 26.6 positions.
Yeah.
Just the mandate.
Just mandated, you know, say it's 20 or 16, but if we're talking about a difference, $50,000 is nothing.
What about policy?
Yeah, it's
It
gonna
includes school committee policy as well, or just state and federal?
be state and federal.
Okay, we can do that. We can do that before Wednesday.
Yeah, I have a sort of a similar question to that, Brad. If I understand the numbers, it looked like the 26.6 was the increase over current year to the proposed fiscal 25 budget. But when the slide was up there, it looked like you actually added many of those positions during the current year.
Yes.
You explained that a little bit a moment ago.
As far as how it's being funded.
So the request is over the current year's actual, it's a smaller number. I think you said 5 or 6, something like that.
Yes, yes.
So you also mentioned in the drastic situation where you needed to cut 3.3 million, there would be 17 reductions.
17 teacher reductions. 3 administrators, 14 paraprofessionals. You can go back to that slide. And then reduce all of the new positions, but that only gets us to really $2 million.
38 FTEs.
38 FTEs. Okay.
Yes, but to get to the 3.3, it would be closer to 40.
And we could, this is something the school committee hasn't really discussed. This is their chance to see this for the first time, some of them. So they would discuss and advise what their priorities would be as well. Like the health benefit savings, if we have a reduction in staff, we'll have a reduction in health benefits. So we would probably move that up and maybe save a position from doing that. If we have
That's with or without the GIC, you have fewer staff, you have fewer health benefits.
That's just less people on the plan.
Right. Yeah, the numbers are, making, it's quite a bit to take in, so I just want to make sure I understood that correctly. There's also a comment made about school choice being 12% of the budget. I think it may have been misspoken or misheard by me, but I was wondering if that could be clarified. There's the pie chart of the school budget, and I thought.
No, sorry. So I think what I was referring to is the out-of-district schools and state assessments. Included in that section, this 12% at the top are the the school choice out students. So sort of like the veterans where they assess you or they assess your cherry sheet. It's very similar. They assess us for students that are attending school choice, other districts. And on the other side, we also get funding for students that are coming to our district, which we talked about earlier.
Right.
So included in that number is that school choice. So sorry, it's,
that's also some sped placements out of district.
yes, it's out of district placements. It's out of district transportation.
So are you being assessed for an out of district school choice? The similar amount that was mentioned earlier, $5,000 per student?
So school choice funding is, we receive 5,000 per student. If we receive a student that requires special education services, we file a form and they reimburse us for special education costs for that student as well. So my assumption is they do the reverse. So if a student of ours goes to another district and requires special education services, that's likely in that assessment.
Okay.
Am I saying that?
And I know the school committee acted to not open up school choice for the coming year, but the superintendent said that's reversible.
Yes.
If you were to reverse it, it would be because you felt you had capacity to fill some seats.
Yes.
It was also stated that those students coming in don't bring in enough revenue to cover their costs.
No.
Which doesn't make any sense to me because I know the average student cost is perhaps 20,000 or so, but the incremental cost of a student is not that single $20,000 cost. If you had significant seats, I would suggest the district should consider opening it up for that added revenue. May not be significant, but it doesn't hurt. The difference would be if it now requires you to hire another para or hire another full-time teacher, then the numbers might start moving in opposite directions. I don't know how much of that analysis you considered or the school committee has, but it just seemed like a weird statement that incremental revenue wasn't worth it.
So part of the issue with school choice is obviously every year our budget is a challenge. And it's a challenge for us to put out, it's a challenge for the towns as well. And one of the pieces with that is that if we accept school choice tonight, which is generally something that happens in February or March, and we don't find out, I mean, oftentimes we're making changes to our budget just prior to town meeting. And we have accepted school choice, and we've accepted it to the point where Now we have to give teachers pink slips on June 15th under the law. And we have to make reductions, and we have taken we've accepted school choice students. We own those students. So for instance, if we had to eliminate, say, a grade 1 teacher and the class sizes there was room for school choice. So we accepted, 4 sections of 22, and we accepted, say, 3 in each section to fill those seats. Then we have to make a reduction. And we've accepted those school choice students, we're stuck. That makes it so that we can't make the reduction. It allows us some flexibility. This year, because the number is so high, if we have to reduce by $3.3 million, June 15th, the way it works out with the override going to the ballot vote, we're not going to know until June if we have to make what could be a massive staff reduction. And if we've accepted school choice students in, we can't go back on that. Those students are ours, they're coming. And not only are they coming for next year, but they're coming until they graduate. So it's more or less, playing it safe for now. And then looking to see if we can take students in after the fact. This year, I can see how it's going to be possible. Because again, teachers find out on June 15th that we have to make a reduction under the law. We're not going to know about overrides most likely until June when it goes to ballot. So it creates a situation where we could put ourselves in a really difficult spot and increase class sizes even more than they would be. And then we're reducing teachers on top of that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Is there anybody online that like to speak? I see. I forget who that was.
Hi, this is David Nato.
Hey there, go ahead.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for allowing me to speak. Couple things. I feel like we do this exercise every single year and nothing changes and we just keep doing the same exercise. The way the budget sits right now, this would mean dramatic cuts for the town of Ashby. We're talking minusing police officers, fire, highway, town hall employees, just to make our budget. We've asked all our departments to level funds. That means no raises either for our employees. Could you tell me, are there any increases for salaries that are non-contractual through the school system?
Yeah, there are some that are still negotiable. But those
Right.
would be individual contracted employees.
Those are non-contracted employees? Is that what you said? Sorry.
It depends. I mean, most of them are either 1 year or 3 year contracts.
Okay.
They're not a part of a collective bargaining agreement.
Okay. So those are negotiable is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. In the budget right now, are there raises built into the budget as we speak? There must be a number plugged in there. Is that with a raise or is that with last year's figure?
That is with the COLA, yes.
I'm sorry, Brad. You broke up again. Sorry.
The COLA is built in.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a tough year for Ashby. So, when I get the enrollment part and stuff, and the low money from the state, I don't know which gentleman that spoke earlier, but, he asked if we could be part of these discussions with the state reps and senators as you are having them. I think it should be a joint meeting somehow, because this will break our town significantly. And it's going to cut services to our seniors, which is it's not good. It's not good. And we need to be able to explain this to them. Right now, I think our budget is 52% to the school. And now we're looking for an override. It's going to be a tough sell. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it'll pass Ashby. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fallon?
Hi, everyone. I appreciate Dave for speaking on behalf of Ashby, and I just wanted to add, I'm not sure if there is a way to have that included, the town representation in these initial conversations or with additional support, but it is significant, and it is something that we don't really have place to pull it from, because I know in Pepperell and in Townsend, it's more than 50% of the budget. It's 52 with us. So it's a big ask, and that increase takes away from the very limited services that we already have. And just to kind of drill the point home a little bit more, just so the school committee can understand, and I'm sure you do, but just from the town perspective, it is really challenging, because we want, to have more than one person on the highway department. We want the roads to be fixed. We want them to be plowed and safe for everyone. And we want these public services for our citizens. And so it will be really difficult with the increase. That's all.
I just wanted to say, we do get here, just about every year looking at the budget. And it is something that weighs on us, because we are a community, and the community is more than just the schools. So we do want the communities to thrive. And we need to educate the students, which is why we kind of come together every year and try to work this out and see how we can pay for everything. We don't want to decimate the town side of the budgets. And then the other thing I wanted to just add in is, I know 52% or 53% of the budget sounds like an awful lot to be going to the schools. But if you look at any town, even a single town, their budgets are 50% schools. This is not something that is unique to our area. It costs a lot of money to educate our students and the young and the future, people within our towns. It's just where it is right now. But we got to try to work together so that nobody really suffers unduly.
If you, once you sharpen your pencils, get this as tight as you can, and you still determine that an override is needed, do you have an action plan in place so that you can go to the town, the seniors especially? I mean, I'll prove as a school committee member to go to the local veterans group, the senior centers, the others, to explain, first of all, explain how a 2.5 override works, that this isn't, in perpetuity for the rest of their life and stuff like that. Do you have anything set up? It is determined that you need after you get to the lowest number possible? Yes.
I believe we are.
I was just going to add, I reached out to all 3 council on agings last week, looking for a date in early March to come and speak. I am going to Pepperell in early March for a breakfast. So I'll be presenting the budget. They are still waiting to hear back from Ashby and Townsend. We have brought on board the public relations firm that we work with to put together a budget website. It will be separate from the North Middlesex website. That will really, it really makes the budget very clear. So families will be able to go to that website specifically, only look at the budget. They'll be able to look at how it will impact their real estate taxes. So they'll be able to punch in their address, and the impact on their real estate taxes will come up immediately. So they'll be able to see what a particular increase will show. But again, moving forward, we're looking to set up coffee and conversations, things of that nature, at various community places, not necessarily in the school district, not in the schools themselves, but out in the community. So once I set up those 3 with the 3 council on agings, I'll reach out and to see, if something can be done with the Lions clubs, the library, something along those lines to, again, explain the budget, because it is something that, especially with the regional school district, is quite complex.
Thank you.
You are.
And just to be clear, so everyone understands, this is information that the school district can put forth on our budget. By law, we are not allowed to advocate or or anything for the 2.5 override. That's something that we cannot sit there and put up signs, on our, school lawns to go for. We can't send flyers home to support the schools for the 2.5 override. The only thing the school committee is allowed to do by law, or the school district, is to give information on what we're asking for. And so we will require volunteers in the community to try and advocate if they think that the schools are worth the money and want to support it.
Just give your name, please.
My name is Robin Buxton. I am on the Finance Committee in Pepperell. So is there any way we can go back to the state and sort of ask for money? Because right now, the way it stands, I look at the numbers on the committee. As Ashby can't, neither can Pepperell. We don't have money. And I feel like, we want the students to have the best. We do, we want that. But I don't want to take away from the veterans and the seniors and the people that can't afford it either. Like, every year, the library in Pepperell needs more money. We can barely give to them. And the library is like the only thing in town that keeps the community together as far as having activities that are free, that people can actually join, but it doesn't cost them a lot of money. And I feel like every year we go through this, and I understand that, the school, it's a lot of money with all of the teachers and retirements, and I want the kids to have the best education, but I mean, is there any way we can ask the state for more money? Because this is just gonna destroy Pepperell. I mean, we're already in the red, like worse than I've ever seen, and that's a problem. I don't wanna have to force, a lot of the seniors in our town or people to, even up the taxes even more. I mean, it's pushing people out of Pepperell than it is keeping them there. And again, that's also hurtful to the town as well. So, can we go back to the state? Can we ask for money? I mean, like I said, I don't know where the money's gonna come from.
Yeah, I'll just say, I know we've met, I know superintendent administration has met, town representatives have met with state reps, with the director of rural affairs, I believe, and we've talked about these issues over the past years, but even recently in the last few months. So to hear that the transportation number has gone down, and transportation has been the major issue we've been bringing to them, it is unbelievable to me, because I hear you, we've gone to them numerous times, so now they get less money.
And even that, just mentioning transportation, I don't mean to interrupt. I know 80% is in the governor's number, but I'm being told through the Mass Regional Schools Association not to bank, plan for something less. So they keep saying 70 to 75, and we got 90 last year. So they know that we're struggling, yet they continue to give us, $30 a student more, or
So I guess my question.
The additional money we get doesn't even cover a teacher when it really comes to it. So it's.
So I guess my question is, I just think we have to keep going to the state. We have to keep going and bothering them, because we can't afford this. Like they're hurting us more than they're helping us at this point.
I think the only thing I would ask, I know other members have done this, and I appreciate that. We just need to get louder and unified. So anybody and everybody, representatives of public included, like, we need to be contacting the state. I know we've all been doing it. Just gotta keep hammering on.
So I just think instead of doing it one by one, we all do it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because this isn't gonna work, and I like the town that I live in. I want to stay there, and people just are leaving because they can't afford it. And every year the services get less and less, and the people in town all lose jobs, and so I just think we all have to come together, and like, I can't just send a letter to the state and say, oh yeah, we need more money. I think all of us need to come together and do something.
And there are 2 regional districts, just to use, I won't mention them by name, but they are close to us. I spoke to both of them yesterday. One is at a 7% increase, the other one is at 10%. And they're both regionals, so they are also pushing for this reform. But it's gonna be, again, we're being told 3 to 5 years before that reform actually impacts us.
Just a question on invitations. I know that I got an invite to this meeting. Did our state representatives and senators get an invite to this meeting as well?
No.
Maybe they should be.
I will say that they are advocating for us. Very, very.
And I'm not trying to diminish that, but the state is also giving out additional funding, additional supports, and additional things to other institutions, but yet they're not supporting the children that we have in school currently. So let's stop the additionals. Let's fix what we have. Let's not wait 3 years. Let them, they should be here, hearing the pain that we're going through, and we're gonna have to with our towns in order to keep the students at a level that we believe we should be. Again, I believe this is a 3-legged stool, and we only have 2 legs at the table. It's easy to come to you or to me and say, we're gonna be working on it. But the proof's in the pudding.
Right.
One other question. This is, you need to crystal ball for this one. Last year, we were faced with an override that failed. This year, we're going to be faced with an override. I'm not sure what's going to happen. What do you predict for the next 5 years? Are we going to have an override every year? Or will the costs settle down? Or do you have any idea, or just a wild guess what you think is going to happen? My guess is things are going to just escalate.
I would like to think that the override that we're asking for, if we go for actually what we're asking for right now, that would get us to the point where, 3 to 5 years, we won't be in this situation anymore, but obviously they can't guarantee that.
Right.
You never know if the state's gonna come out with something else. I mean, the ELO, they just started 2 years ago. And that was not something that we were anticipating. But it's something that we have now. We actually have 3 people, four people in the district that are ELL staff members. And that's new. So, I mean, that's 4 people. That's a relatively significant budget when you look at the numbers. I did just see, it looks like Senator Cronin is on the call and has his hand raised remotely.
Right, we should go talk to Senator.
Senator Cronin, are you there?
I am not Senator Cronin.
You are not.
I'm an as David would tell you from Ashby, I'm an impersonator. Okay, my name is John Cronin, and I do want to participate in this meeting very much so when I get a chance to speak.
No, go ahead.
Okay, well, I have a number of items. First of all, I want to back up David and Jessica, point blank, because I am not an elected official. I'm a former superintendent of schools. So a lot of this stuff that goes on is a little bit of double speak. Number one, what you're doing to even think the last question, to ask that question, is this going to settle down? You could certainly ask that question, and I can certainly give you the answer. No. Teacher salaries are going to go up. Healthcare is going to go up. Look at the percentage, your percentage of salaries. That's going to go up and up and up and every year. That's just the way it is. So it's not going to settle down. In other words, whether you hire 1 or 2 teachers or not hire 1 or 2 teachers next year it's not going to make a difference in the budget. The other thing from Ashby cannot tolerate this. If the people of Ashby were to override this, they'd be out of their mind. There's approximately 400 students participate in this district from Ashby. And if that's 1 child from every family, that's 400 families. We have 3,100 citizens in Ashby. 65% of them are probably senior citizens. This is crazy to put the burden, more burden on top of them, knowing that next year you're going to put it again. The other thing is, what do you have to do? Somewhere along they have to bite the bullet. David himself there just mentioned he's going to go and going to ask for level funding in our town. You're going to have to ask for level funding in the school. Contractual obligations sometimes are meant to be broken. Okay? You don't necessarily have to, if you can't pay, you can't pay, no matter what the contract is. The contract, when you went into the contract in good, this happened to me down in New Jersey, went into the contract in good faith and then was unable to pay. Granted, there were fines and court things and everything else, but level funding means level funding. Okay? The other thing that you have to keep in mind is that you have a right that I know it's not going to go over well, but the staff, the teachers, should be made aware of this meeting tonight, that there are consequences, that there is a possibility when you come around that the override doesn't pass, that you do have to hand out pink slips. If you people, or I shouldn't say you people, if we're going to wait until the end of the year to tell these people, oh, you can't come back, and we knew in February that there was a chance that you couldn't come back, that's not good. There's something wrong there ethically. But in other words, you have to define what the term level funding is. All you have to do is look at the slide with all the numbers on it and take out that pencil that man there said, that sharp pencil, and to see where is cuts really going to make a difference. You know, not buying a case of chalk and a case of erasers is not going to make a difference. The line item you got to look at is salaries, health care, okay, and the major things like that. I don't want to even bring up the fact that Ashby's going to need a public grammar school. I mean, that puts you over the falls. But those are things I think you really have to start looking at as the major things to cut. I mean, you can cut out all the little things you want. You can reduce teachers. You can take 3 or 4 teachers who are making $60,000. Well, these new teachers, let's say they're making $60,000 and you're not going to pay them. There's $300,000. That's 1/10 of the $3.3 million you're looking for. It's a penny in the bucket. You got to look at the real money you're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Can we just clarify?
Yeah, please.
So I don't believe I said level funded. I believe I said level service. This is just to clarify. And this is something that was discussed during negotiations. So it is something that the teachers.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to have Pat. We just give your name and address, please.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. Yes, this is going to be a tight one again for not only Ashby, but the other schools.
Pat, could you just give your name and address, please?
From Ashby,
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Patrick McPhee from Ashby.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is going to be a tight year for everybody, not only for us worrying about getting more funds from the state, because the state has already run the past 7 months short. So they're expecting to do more cuts than what we're seeing. On top of that, we haven't been looking at that. But if you're we've been mandated with those slots that he's saying we have to add. So if we cut them from what we'll call regular classrooms or kids that are targeting college, we're going to be losing a lot of kids that will be able to go to college, or are going to have to find other resources throughout high school to fill those requirements that they need to get accepted into college. And that's going to be a lot of burden on parents also. So we have to look at that. So when you're cutting, you say you're cutting a teacher, you're cutting this, you're cutting that for a kid, or a kid that wants to go on to an engineering school that doesn't get the core requirements from his high school, does no good. And you're going to be affecting those parents. And we all knew that those mandatory slots were coming. We all knew after COVID, none of us, every person here is intelligent. We all knew that we had to come up with resources that were needed after COVID, the post-COVID. We all knew this. We knew this was coming. And it's been discussed by the superintendent every year. He's done a great job giving you guys education ahead of it. But we knew it was coming. I mean, I knew it was coming, so, and I'm just basically from listening to the meetings. So I say, yeah, we're going to have to bite the bullet a little bit. Yeah, it's a big bullet, so we might have to cut it down a little bit. But we can't ask these parents to go outside resources and pay for, or pull their kids out and send them somewhere else because they need to make sure they get the core requirements. You know, nobody wants to live in Pepperell, Ashby that has to take their kid out of the school system because the basic core requirements for them to go to college aren't there anymore, and send them off to another one, a private school or something. You know, that's what you're looking at by doing major cuts. Now, we could do cuts. There's cuts on all of us. We're giving full insurance to part-timers. Stop it. No one gives full insurance to part-timers. We do it in the school system. We do it in the communities. Stop it. Okay? Stop doing that. That would be a tremendous cut across the board for everybody. We are paying phenomenal wages for personnel, and but yet we're looking to cut staff personnel wages in schools. Not going to happen. There's too many options out there for teachers. We have to pay attention to that. I see teachers that are getting phenomenal pay now for this because they're getting demanded. You could go to another regional school district and then go to the next town over, and they're getting a $20,000 increase just for a paratransit. And that's Worcester in the community school, regional school district next to it. So you're seeing this. And part-time, but the part-timers for the paratransit are not getting health benefits, I believe. We're giving them. Let's stop it. That's a big savings. But we also have to look at that. I say you guys have done good in the school committee before on getting this budget under, but there's some things you have to figure out and have to cut. And that's the only way you can do that. And there's one other question. Go ahead. She's also a former school committee. What about retirement health? Why are we so high on our retirement health? We don't even have it for the police departments. Why are we so high on the retirement health in Massachusetts for the school systems? That's a big chunk of money for our teachers. Has anybody looked at cutting the retirement health down to 60% of what you would have gotten for retirement instead of going to 90% that towns are given for retirement health? Has anybody looked at that for just the teachers? Those are a few things. That's what I have to say. Thank you. You guys have done a great job. I liked the presentation, gave me a lot of information, and I'll have some feedbacks later on it.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. All right, anybody else who wishes to speak at the hearing? Taking that out, take a motion. Close the public hearing.
Second.
Who's seconding? All right, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay. All right. Closed. Not voting is how I do. All right, we're gonna move on to the rest of our meeting, so anybody who doesn't care about the rest of the school committee business, you could be a second to leave. And
Anything more exciting than budget?
oh, we have approval of minutes and Yeah.
Thank you to everybody for coming and, it was a good conversation. We appreciate your input.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. Discussions will continue, but thank you for sharing some of this. All right,
Thank you all.
Thank you. And just go with you.
all right, moving on to the consent agenda. We have approval of minutes, account payable warrants, payroll warrants, and $46.71 donation. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Right, yes. Covered already with public comments, so moving on to chairperson's report. This is more really for the committee, just a reminder, especially as we enter budget season. I know a lot is going on. But if anybody from the committee would like items on the agenda for the full school committee, please don't hesitate to reach out. We can talk about that week before the meeting, because I still need to, we're gonna add it and still put things together, make sure the chairs can get that off to Robin. The second part of that is for both these meetings and subcommittees, just making sure that agendas, supporting materials, we need to make sure we have all that together, really 4 days in advance of the meeting, because we need to post everything 2 days in advance of the meeting. So I just want to make sure that with, again, everything else going on, everybody's super busy, myself included, and we're all busy. If we needed materials to gather from the administration, that takes time as well, but we need to make sure we get all that posted 48 hours in advance, so we can work to get that done 4 days prior. I think that'll help everybody. And then I do, we've kind of moved away from like full packets, so I just want to thank Robin for linking everything in the agenda, so now hopefully the public gets it, page or two to look at, and can go through everything. If you notice anything that's missing, again, just let me know, or let Robin know ahead of the meeting, so we can get that fixed as soon as possible. Again, getting stuff in there 4 days in advance, be prepared, we'll know sooner than later if anything's missing, to get that. So.
And I just clarify, so I do embed the links in the agenda. However, the packets are on the shared Google Drive for the school committee.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's all that I have.
I do not even.
You have nothing else? You sure? All right, first item under old business, 2024-25 school district calendar. Don't know, was there a change made?
Yes, so there were, you removed some of the late starts and early release dates were removed.
And just in communication with the advisory that I'm working with and talking to them about half days, especially around the holidays, like the traditional Friday going into the winter break in December, eliminating it because it's so early this year, and there's really no need to call for it for a half day because the holiday itself doesn't actually hit until the middle of the next week. Oftentimes that's because of some of the CBAs we have in place, but where again there's a separation, we're going to keep, is it December 20th? Is a full day as opposed to it being a half day, where oftentimes again that Friday happens to be a half day going into the break, but it's in the middle of the next week. Also trying to be mindful about just a number of half days across the board. Again, hearing from some parents, people on advisory, teachers, the union group that we meet with, just trying to optimize as many full days as we possibly can.
All right, any questions from everyone? If not, I will take a motion to approve the 2024-25 school district calendar as amended. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Passes. Next up, I have, new business school lunch availability. I know the committee and individuals as well as the committee as a whole has been receiving, some concerns raised around, the availability of meals, different meals being available than what was on the schedule, students not eating, things like that. So I wanted to make sure that as a committee, we looked into that just based on the handful of concerns that we raised. Lisa, Mark, and we looked into some of this. So if you want to get out there.
Nancy and I had a meeting with Fresh Fix earlier this week and discussed our concerns with them and things. They did, because we went through the food audit. When was the food audit? Or the food service audit?
Yes.
Yeah, when was that? It was in December.
Yeah, I think they came in December, yeah.
So there were things that they had to change to accommodate that. That's why we changed the prices in our last meeting and things. And then, they have implemented at the elementary level, third choice, because they had only two choices. And so February 1st, they implemented a third choice at the elementary level, giving the kids a little more variety. So what was happening is it wasn't they were running out of food for the kids. It was the choices that they were running out of. The French and toast sticks may not have been available for everyone. But now when they discussed with us, they're going to start overproducing and having enough for all of the classes. And this was an issue at the elementary levels more than it was at the high school levels or the middle schools, because the middle school and the high school all have like 7 options to choose from or different choices.
Yeah, I do know at the high school, there are issues with the third lunch, with that variety being reduced down to almost nothing.
Yeah, and so they're working on that as well, and they're introducing, they just introduced a new variety thing besides the paninis. What else did they? Oh, burritos.
Yeah, was that a burrito? Is it a bowl, like a Mexican bowl?
Yeah, and they did that this last month as well. So they're trying to, I mean, the paninis at the high school remain so popular, very popular. So, but they continue to look at the different things in our school. Next month, we've asked them to come back and give a full presentation on what they've changed and to look at what, if the change at the elementary school has really provided what we wanted.
So I guess my question would be were they aware what was happening? How are they keeping track of that? And if so, why weren't they being proactive? And then how are we going to know if it actually changed? What are they going to be able to bring to us? Or how are we going to be able to check to make sure that this has changed the way we want?
I think they know because they do production records, so when something runs out, they're able to see that it ran out. I don't know that they know whether a student moved to the other, there's some subjectivity there where the student may see that there's not pizza and they go to the other line and grab it and it's not an issue. So it's a little hard to tell how many people specifically are affected by it that way. So I think the overproduction is where they're going to go next to make sure that they have enough options. And Lisa and I were talking that the elementary, it's an issue at every level, but the elementary is a little more sensitive because the kids really like what they like. And if it's not available,
they get it.
It's a little more.
And I understand that, but we did have that one email, don't know how to verify it one way or the other. But saying that, handful of tater tots was all they received, especially at the elementary school, that's not acceptable.
No.
So it's not that I want every single child and that we need to make sure, but I want to make sure that kids have a full meal. So the overproduction probably will help with that. As well as at the high school where there are 3 different lunches. I know back last year, when my daughter was still in the high school, She had third lunch an awful lot her senior year, and always complained that there was nothing. I mean, you might get a main meal, you might get a salad that's been sitting out and not looking great. So it was an issue then, and I've heard more stories, and I know other people have heard more stories about that third lunch. And so I just want to make sure that we're treating, just because somebody wound up with a third lunch, that they're not ever gonna get anything, that's good on the menu.
And I think that's where they're, with the overproducing thing, and they know that, and so they wrapped that up and stuff.
Yeah.
And basically, they, need to know what the problems are so that they can fix them sometimes. And I know Nancy has been great at communicating with them and keeping them in line with what they need. And, having the different schools that we do, it's hard to know which school is, because Spalding might prefer something more than Barnbrook. So they balance that. They're trying to balance that.
Is there any way that we can have like an independent person, somebody in the school? I don't know if it's a, teacher picking up, the last class from it, just to take a look at what was left. Some sort of, report back that the last couple of students weren't shorted, that were in line for food at the different schools. I don't know if that's it or if there's something else, but I'd like to have some real feedback, independent, just to make sure that what's being put in place is working. And we get that information quicker than, maybe, 5 months from now, we start getting the stories trickling in. If we can try and verify it earlier and catch it earlier, it's still a problem.
They have, if they have production records, hopefully they could mark what they thought at the end of their lunch.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would use that and say, okay, well, the first week we had 20 extra meals. The next week we had 15, the next week we had 5, and that's a good number.
Well, and it's not like on meals, it's like on product.
Correct.
It's like, I made 40 French toast sticks, at the end I have 5 left.
Right.
That kind of thing, that's the production I'm looking for. But it's interesting to know that, like the vegetables and fruits and things, the kids can take as many as they want of those. But we also have to look at the waste that is produced from this too, and so we want to make it balanced. And I think that they are for all of that. And they're willing to have committee members come in at lunches and see what's going on. If you guys want to do that, I'm sure that that's an option. And they've reached out to the principals to talk to the principals, and have meetings with them, because the principals are the first line of action and, knows what's going on in our building. So if you guys have any more questions that they can answer, just send them to Nancy and I, and we can have it in our presentation next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will just add, I know we received, again, a handful of emails from concerned parents and stuff, so just want to continue to have people do that, send us emails, and that's how we can be aware, and we can let the vendor know, we'll let the administration know that things are fixed. Positive news as well. So.
I also want to encourage parents to go ahead and reach out to the individual schools.
Oh, absolutely.
That should be the first line that they're reaching out.
Facebook will not give you the answer. All right, anything else on that? So we'll expect Fresh Fix next month, and if anybody in public included, if anybody has questions for them, again, submit those ahead of time so we can give them a chance to look into it about it.
And when is our next meeting?
March 12th. Yes, March 14th. All right, moving on to subcommittees, anything from accelerated repair? Ashley, building committee, Joe?
Yeah, just a quick update. Over the last year, we've been looking at a lot of different options for a heating solution. And by we, actually, I'll give credit to Dave Amari, who's done so much legwork on this. But at our last meeting, we did approve to allocate up to $15,000 for a feasibility study on the heating system. What we kind of landed on was something in the middle of putting a Band-Aid on the current boiler and redoing the whole system, which would be very costly, sort of a hybrid solution. where, we would install 2 small, high-efficiency forced hot water boilers for one section of the school and a small boiler for the other section of the school. But we really need a lot more information on whether this will actually work the way we want it to work. So we did approve, some funds, like I said, up to 15,000, of that 300,000 that was allocated by Ashby, to, move forward to get the information that we need on that. Because we do need to make a decision soon. By the end of June, we need to determine what we're doing with that funding. We have a year to spend it after that, but we do need to kind of really figure this out. We're at that point, so that's where we're at right now.
Nancy, I don't know if this is a question for you, from Kim, you may know, but for spending those funds, I mean, do we, as a committee, have to do anything, or is technically Ashby funds that Ashby Building Committee is able to direct, or how is that?
So the committee voted to authorize the study for the HVAC and a few other, one of the items is already completed. We will be coming back to the committee with an agreement with Ashby because we're using their funding, so we'll have to have an agreement in place on how that's going to work. It's mostly generated. It's just a couple items left to settle, but it should be soon that we bring that to the committee, and maybe even in March.
Yeah, that'd be probably good to get that.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you. I actually got an email from Mr. Templeton on the building committee. I don't remember what it says, something about closing that out soon, so. Fingers crossed. Communications, oh, you're listed again. I just can't
dodge it.
No.
He is?
Finances.
I continue to work on the budget.
How's that going?
It's good.
Excellent. Negotiations, we still working.
Brett and Anne Marie had their first meeting with your questions. It's going. The teachers, I guess, tonight have ratified. And so we'll have to post that out and sign away. So I think we're good.
Awesome. Policy.
Yes, I have 3 policies. I have not heard anything back from anyone in the public or on the school committee about these 3 that were up for first reading. So tonight is for adoption. So I will move that we approve policy EFE, civil rights complaint, policy for child nutrition programs, policy HB, negotiation legal status, and HF, school committee negotiating agents for adoption. So moved. Second.
All right, any questions, comments on those policies? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right. And yes.
We just keep moving along.
Any update, June, from Ashby, since our representative?
No update.
All right, any other business folks need to roll in? They find is after the building. All right, then I will take a motion to
I move that we meet in executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A for the following purpose. Purpose 2, conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the superintendent of schools. And, purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to and in preparation for collective bargaining with the North Middlesex Regional School District teachers, secretarial, educational support professionals, and nurses associations and units, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect position of the committee, and purpose 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirement. The approval of executive session minutes dated January 18th, 2024, January 11th, 2024 from negotiation subcommittee, and December 18th, 2023 from the negotiation subcommittee.
Second.
All right. This will be a roll call to enter executive session. David? Yeah. Joe?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes, so the committee will now be meeting in executive session. Pursuant to MGL chapter 30, section 21A, purposes. Purpose 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-personnel or conduct bargaining sessions or contract negotiations. Personnel should protect schools. Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to preparation for bargaining with regional school district teachers. Secretary of Custodial Education Support Stations, opportunity for discussion and regular committee. Purpose 7, to comply with the operating authority, general or special law, and federal grant aid requirements, including executive session number 4, 2019, stating 11, 2024, negotiation subcommittee, December 18th, negotiation subcommittee. All right.